Hello, IB history scholars. It's Mr. Newcomb, and today I would like to focus on Hitler and Nazi Germany, and more specifically, take a look at the rise of Hitler and his dictatorship. Now, in order to understand Hitler's rise to power, we have to get a little historical context here and need to look at the early years of the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party actually was called the German Workers' Party and was formed in 1919, and Anton Drexler was the founder of this party. What he wanted to do was create an alternative to the Communist Party. So his goal was to bring in workers and people interested in nationalist ideas to really become, again, this alternative to the Communist Party. Now, Hitler will join the German Workers' Party in 1919, and they knew early on that Adolf Hitler was fairly gifted in recruitment and propaganda. He was able to expand the size of the party as well as the message of this party. And he becomes extremely influential that by 1920, he has become the party leader. He finds a way to take that title from Anton Drexler. Now, Adolf Hitler has ideas for the German Workers' Party. He wants to bring it more on a national scale. In order to do that, they really need to begin to define their ideas. And early on, you can see that in a document known as the 25-point program. The 25-point program includes various points related to the German nation, but also what the government needs to do for the German people, and there is some race elements to this program. Also in 1921, they form a group known as the SA, and the SA acts like a paramilitary group, and the goal of this group is to further spread the ideas of the German Workers' Party, but also focus on propaganda as well as crowd control. I should also mention that by 1921, the German Workers' Party actually renamed itself, and they will call themselves the National Socialist German Workers' Party. We'll simply refer to them as Nazis. They adopt the swastika in the arm salute, and so those images that we typically see of the Nazis is being formed at this point and become synonymous with this particular group. Now, also to understand a little bit more about the rise of Adolf Hitler, we have to take a look at what is happening with the Weimar Republic itself. And so again, this has given us that historical context. Now, the Weimar Republic is the name of the government created in Germany after the First World War. And this government was forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles at the end of the First World War. Now, Germans resented the Treaty of Versailles. They looked at it as a dictated treaty. Germany was really unable to negotiate the terms of this particular treaty, so that's why they look at it as being a dictated treaty. Germany lost about 13% of its territory. Germany could not unite with Austria, and reparations were very punitive and will have an economic impact on Germany. And this idea that the German armed forces is greatly reduced, and historically, the armed forces has played a pretty significant role in Germany and the German Empire. So Germans, again, resented the Treaty of Versailles. Now, the Weimar Republic was extremely unstable. It struggled to deal with political opposition. Threats are going to come from the left, which is the communists. So you have groups like the Communists rising. And then you have threats from the right. And this is where the Nazi Party is going to be coming from. And they will challenge early on the Weimar Republic in a failed beer hall putsch, and I will talk a little bit more about that down the road. Now, there's one thing interesting about the Weimar Constitution, though, is that there are provisions within the Constitution that allows for the president of Germany, who at that time was extremely powerful, when you compare it to the president of Germany today, that they could institute emergency powers. All right, I believe it's Article 48 that really allows for the German president to institute emergency powers. And the president of Germany will do that on a number of occasions. And the president of Germany is going to be extremely popular. His name is Paul von Hindenburg, and he is a kind of a hero from the First World War for the German peoples. Also, with the Weimar Constitution, it does set up for a parliamentary system of government. And so the way the governments are created, it really makes it very difficult for one particular party to have what we'll call a simple majority, 50% plus one. So many of these governments that are going to be created are going to be simply coalition governments, and they're going to be fragile. Now, we know that in the 1920s, especially immediately right after the First World War, there's going to be economic issues in Germany. The economy is really going to be struggling, and a lot of it has to do because of the conditions of the Treaty of Versailles. But that happens early on in the front end. But as long as there are economic problems remain in Germany, it puts it in a crisis state. So it allows for extreme leaders to emerge, like Adolf Hitler. Now, midway through the 1920s, German economy does stabilize and it enters a good economic period for Germany, which makes it difficult for someone like Hitler. But by 1929, we know that a stock market crash is going to happen in the United States, which is going to contribute to a global economic crisis, which is going to present now an opportunity for Adolf Hitler. Now, Adolf Hitler, remember, he wanted to bring the Nazi Party on a national scale. And so for an opportunity is going to present itself here in 1923. They are going to make this their moment to kind of break out. And the goal of this putsch, and a putsch is just another word, a way of saying overthrow. It's a German word for overthrow. The goal of the putsch was to really start in southern Germany in this beer hall putsch and expand nationwide, that it would spontaneously spark others. Well, it never did happen. It was quickly put down. And he will be sentenced to prison. He'll get a 5-year sentence, but he really only served 9 months. Actually, in southern Germany, there is an audience that is very sympathetic to Adolf Hitler and his message. But while in prison, he writes the book Mein Kampf. And we can look at Mein Kampf as another blueprint for what he plans to do with Germany. So we have the 25-point program, and now we have Mein Kampf. And it outlines his views of Germany under his own leadership. It has also his fundamental principles of what he perceives about Germany's role in the world, and outlines some of his key foreign policy objectives. Hitler's socialism that he speaks about in Mein Kampf was just a blind form of national patriotism here. Now, when we look at the lessons that Hitler and the Nazis will learn from this beer hall putsch failure, is that they realize they're going to have to change their tactics. They got to move away from violent overthrow of the government to try to go through legal means to secure power that way. They need to broaden the party base, bring in more of the German middle class. Right now, it's lacking. And then reorganize the party as well. And basically is going to find a way to secure his position even more as the leader of the Nazi Party. So part of that reorganization of this party is to expand the role of the SA and have a greater role in propaganda, form an elite bodyguard known as the SS, regionalize the party, so have the party throughout Germany, and then establish the Hitler Youth, a youth organization that is going to become critical in the Germany that Hitler wants to create. Now, right now, the Hitler Youth that was formed, it's only associated with the party, and it's not mandatory to be part of it. Now, what is going to present itself for Hitler and the Nazis to really kind of vault into that national political success is the economic crisis. And when we talk about the economic crisis, it is the crash that sparks the Great Depression, puts Germany once again in an economic critical state. The impact on German politics is it begins to really polarize it to a point where there's really only two viable options for German people in the 1932 election. Either go with the communists or go with the Nazi Party. And in 1932, the Nazis are going to have their biggest success. And I guess when we look at what is the appeal of the Nazi Party now, is Hitler is being viewed as a strong leader who possibly could lead them through this difficult time. He does have a kind of like a New Deal plan that includes some job creation schemes. He has found a way to connect with the business leaders. And more importantly, he is winning over more of the middle class. And so his message does seem to be effective. And so when we look at the success here in 1932, there is about 608 seats in the German Reichstag, which is their parliament. The Nazis pick up 230 seats. So it's not a clear majority here, but what it means is they will have a say in creating this new government. Now, in 1932, it really is beginning to pave the way for the Nazis to really come to power. Because of that election success, it means that the Nazis will have several people within the minister cabinet. Now, Hindenburg, I mentioned earlier, he is the president of Germany. He has the power to select the chancellor, and he is going to withhold the title of chancellor to Hitler in the summer of 1932, which really creates a crisis for the Nazi Party. They really thought that because of their election success, that Hitler would get the title chancellor. He was not interested in vice chancellor. He was not interested in some minor minister role. He wanted chancellor. And so in the autumn of 1932, the Nazi Party is in a crisis. There are some elements within the Nazi Party that would like to challenge Hitler for leadership. They spent a lot of money in that earlier election in 1932, so they're on the verge of bankruptcy. And he's also on the verge of losing support of conservatives like some of the business leaders. So he has to find ways to shore that up. But Hitler is one who does find a way for success. He finds a way to hang on and survive. And with later election in 1932, the Nazis succeed, but they did not have the success that they had earlier. But still, because Hindenburg couldn't get coalition governments or chancellors to put together coalition governments that would last, that ultimately in January of 1933, he reluctantly gives the title of chancellor to Adolf Hitler. And so now we look at Germany under Adolf Hitler, and his path to power now goes through the legal channels. Now, even though he has been appointed chancellor in January of 1933, nowhere is his position secure. Now, this is where maybe more miscalculations by his political opponents, as well as events come into play here for Adolf Hitler. And so from 1933 to 1934, he's going to work on consolidating his power. And in February 1933, a very important event happens, the Reichstag fire. Of course, he's going to blame the communists, and he will use this event as a way to secure more power. And the German Reichstag is going to pass a bill known as the Enabling Act that really is going to concentrate more power in his hand. The final democratic election occurs in March of 1933, and it is a big Nazi win, 288 seats now. It's, again, not a pure majority by any means. Other nationalist groups will work with the Nazis to be able to really silence those political groups in the center or on the left side. And so now the road to his dictatorship is really created here. With the passing of that Enabling Act in March of 1933, right at the end of his, excuse me, go back here. With the passage of the Enabling Act, it really does allow him now to go aggressively at his opponents. What it simply does is it gives more of the legislative making process in the hands of the Reichstag's chancellors, or the Reichstag's Chancellor's Council. And really, in the Reichstag Chancellor's Council is simply just going to rubber stamp what the Chancellor wants. And so the legal revolution is going to begin here. And what that is referencing here is the process towards Nazi domination over Germany, which we'll simply call Gleichschaltung, or the coordinated effort here. The Nazi political control of the nation begins, removing non-Nazis from high government officials, as well as departments and agencies, really begin what we'll simply refer to as the Nazification of Germany. To further go along with his consolidation of power, he needs to eliminate his opposition within the Nazi Party. He wants to avoid what he sometimes referred to as a second revolution, not necessary. And that means he's going to have to get rid of his key rival, which is Ernst Röhm in the SA. And so in the Night of the Long Knives in June of 1934, he gets rid of the SA, simply purges the leadership, which means execution, showcase trials, send them to prison, or simply just fold them into other elements of the Nazi Party. But with the Night of the Long Knives, he sends a message to the conservative business leaders, to the military, that you do not need to worry about a second revolution, and that he is firmly in charge, and that he is a strong leader, and he will look out for certain elements of Germany, and more specifically, like the industrial complex that is going to be married with the military here. And then ultimately, at the end, or near the end of 1934, with the death of Hindenburg, he will now just simply assume the title President of Germany. And so now he is head of the Nazi Party. He is Chancellor. He is President of Germany. He is the Führer. and the German people in a referendum will give the thumbs up, the green light, that they approve of what Hitler is doing. So by the end of 1934, he has firm control of Germany, and now he can start working on enacting some of his short and long-term plans for Germany.